Hey, Kat and Richard, thanks for joining us today. As a way to get us started, give us some background on yourselves.
Hi, Pat. Well, I first started out in life in the Navy, as it seems, and then went, after that, I got into commercial electrical, which I did for many years. Then I met Catherine, and she drugged me into this. And so
You had no
I
choice.
had no choice. So in 2010 is when I got my real estate license and joined her as a team, and we've been a team ever since.
Yeah,
So,
and my background is gosh, 30 years in sales. I started out in retail sales because I was interested in fashion merchandising. That's what I went to school for. So one of my first jobs was assistant manager at a retail store. Then it led to Nordstrom, which led to me moving out to Sacramento, which led to leasing, then loans, and then finally real estate.
wow, that's a good history there. I know why you probably, I'll get back to you, Catherine, on why you got into real estate. But what, Richard, I mean, besides Catherine dragging you into it, I mean, you must have had some interest in it as well, right?
It did. Yeah, I guess one part I left out was in '94. I first got my real estate license, and I was in LA. At that time, I was working as an electrician and had aspirations of getting into real estate. Um, but there was no support. And so I eventually just kind of set it aside and dove into my career as an electrician deeper. But I always had interest. And so meeting Catherine, and she was into the industry, we were always engaged. And as a matter of fact, when she would have events, I would help out with that. I would help out with all the technical stuff, all the servers and computer setups and email setups and everything. So eventually, it was kind of a natural transition, really.
And Catherine, I know you said you were in some retail sales. I mean, what was the epiphany for you to want to get into real estate? Was there something, did you know somebody? Did some of your family sell real estate, or was it just the lure of selling real estate?
Yeah, I mean, once you realize, you know, you're not going to be in retail forever. You say, well, what can I do? What would I be good at? And I think really just that moving to Sacramento and getting into leasing, that's what did it for me. I went and got my real estate license. And even when I was doing that, I would, back in the day, it was Century 21 was really big over there. And I just went up to them and said, hey, what can I do to learn? And they gave me, it used to be papers of people that expired because computers weren't big then, so it was all on paper. And I would make phone calls and see if they wanted to interview an agent, and then they would give me a referral fee if I got the appointment and they closed the deal. So that was the beginning for me, and until I was ready to go out on my own. I did the leasing for a long time, and then I got into loans, and then eventually got into real estate.
So, Kat, there's a lot of dial-ups in your history too, right? When using that phone, right? I
Yeah.
could see your skill set, taking that from retail into real estate and getting into more of that bigger sale. But Richard, you come from the Navy, from being an electrician, that type of industry. I mean, what skill was there anything that you learned there that brought it, that you bring over to the real estate industry? Was there something that you saw there?
Well, I would say not really in sales, but I did a lot of project management when I was in construction. Eventually, at the end of my electrical career, I was a foreman. And so I had to deal with a lot of different personalities and keep everything on track. So it's like I have a unique spatial awareness of timing and what should happen. So that in itself, and yeah, the Navy definitely gives you a lot of discipline,
Right.
teaches you a lot of discipline, and so it's a matter of focus.
Right.
So
Right.
I can tell you probably something that he doesn't even know. When I was when I was in real estate, I had to work at it. I had to do what it took to meet people, get the appointment, et cetera, et cetera. With him, anybody he met was drawn to him genuinely. So most of the people that he was getting deals from were just friends or people that he was
Right.
friendly with, or people that knew he was going to be working with me and referred people to him. So with Richard, it comes very easy, just because of his genuine self. Whereas I'm more business operations oriented, making sure things go smoothly. You know, he's definitely that other part that I don't have. And I think vice versa.
And I think in sales, especially when you have a team, right? Not so much, and this is more of a husband wife team. In the sales that we do, we we're all individual contributors in our organization, and you were both individual contributors at one time, and you still are in the industry you're in right now, but you complement each other, and that's what I really think is what makes teams like yourself very successful, right? And Richard anybody successful, I think, in sales has, if you can kind of lean toward a couple of things, right? They have a great personality, they know how to build relationships, they know how to communicate. What are the strengths that you felt that you had, Catherine, that, complemented, Richard's skill set?
Well, I think just, gosh, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, okay. So when I walk into a listing appointment, I am looking around me and I can see what people are interested in, and I'll point things out. And I usually have some common interest, right? And so I love to build rapport because I really, really like people. I really do. And I find people interesting, and I find what they think about things are interesting. And so it's natural for me just to get into that. Catherine is the she's the closer.
There you go.
She's the closer. And so if it were up to me, I would just keep going and nothing would ever get close, right? So it's very important, right? She'll get it on paper.
Yeah, and you said, Catherine, you alluded to the fact that you were more on that business end of the deal, right? In your business, you have to have somebody, because you guys not only sell, but you also have clients that buy homes, right? So you're both on that different spectrum. Is there anything different, in your opinion, when you sell a house or when you help a client buy a house? Is that a whole different dynamic there, you think?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
What's the difference, Catherine?
Well, when you're selling a home, you're wanting certain things, and when you're buying a home, you're wanting certain things, and sometimes both don't really know what they want. And it's up to us to really, on both ends, find out what their needs are, ask the right questions so we can lead them to reach their ultimate goal. But of course, a buyer is going to have a different goal than a seller would.
Yeah, and therein lies a whole set of other details, right? You have a husband and wife or partners that don't disagree or agree on certain things. One may want a bigger house with more rooms. The other one may want a downscale. So you have that dynamic working. But I love, a lot of times, and I find this especially in the newer salespeople, and I'm sure you found that out when you were both starting off together, that you have to understand the customer's desired outcomes. What is it that they want? Sometimes that's not always clear, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to get it out of them.
How do you guys, and Richard, you may have a different way than Catherine does. How do you get that out of them? How do you get to their desired outcome?
Well, I'll take a buyer, for example. In both regards, I can say that we are in a people business. It just so happens there's a house involved.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So when I'm with a buyer, it's reading the room, right? You can tell. So I'll have a buyer that's like, listen, I just have to feel it. And generally, you're not going to get much because it's hard to nail down what somebody feels, right? So then you might have to interject little things like, talk about specific floors or countertops or room spaces or minus room spaces. So it's a lot of questions, or sometimes not asking questions at all. I find the less I put myself into what they're seeing, the better off I am.
Yeah, it's more like, so what did you think?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, the bathroom's too small. Who knew that, that was going to come out of their mouths. So it's, what do you focus on next? It's, what could you live with? What could you live without? We'll have clients that will pick a home that's a busy street that we never thought in a million years they would pick a home that has a busy street.
Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah, it's just asking questions and just really being there for them, just listening to them and not interjecting your thoughts, except, what would you like to see instead? Or what could we help you find instead? Those type of things. Having them really, talk to you about it and think about it as well. Because sometimes they don't know.
Yeah. Not bringing your perception into the sale, because your perception is your reality. It's not what your customer's reality might be, right? Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I remember, I know all the times I go on calls with other teammates and cohorts, right? And sometimes we come out of that meeting and they'll go, oh, wow, that meeting went so well. I think, we really talked a lot about our organization, what we can do. What did you think? And I may have a different opinion, right? So because my perception of reality might be different than my cohort's, perception, reality. Do you guys ever walk out of meetings or with customer meetings and say, Kat or Richard, what did you guys talk to yourself? What did you see in that? I mean, what did you come back with? I saw it this way. Did you see it differently? Does that happen with you all the time?
All the time. Every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll be things like, well, I don't know. They didn't talk about this, so I'm not sure. Or did you see their arms folded? Things like that. What do you think that was about? Or
well, yeah, I mean, your goal is always to close, right?
Right.
But we find that it's not always the outcome at that time, right? So you have to have, we've learned how to ask certain questions. And then we also know how things are going from the questions that they ask. And a lot of times the questions they don't ask, right? Questions they don't ask can tell you more about where their headspace is.
Right.
Right.
Some people just invite us. They probably maybe have already picked somebody, but because we specialize in the neighborhood, they kind of want a second opinion. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of times where we'll go in there and they had no desire, to hire us at all. Mm-hmm. So we can sometimes read that and just cut the meeting shorter.
Right.
Yes, and we ask a lot of questions before we meet with somebody, just so we can tailor the presentation to them. And it's really important to meet both decision makers. We'll have a husband call us without the wife there, and we're like, no, we need both of you there.
Right.
It never works out.
It never works out. Sometimes you got to do it because you don't want to be confrontational.
Mhm.
So we just, we'll do it, but we kind of know what the outcome's going to be.
We always know when they're interested, when they ask, what's your commission?
Mhm.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. What are you kidding me? And even in your industry, it comes down to price, right?
Right, absolutely. What do you charge?
Yeah,
What am I
what you're
paying
charging.
for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how cheap will you do it?
If they don't ask, then there's a pretty good indication that they're not going to hire you. They never had any intention.
Yeah, it always comes down to that price issue though. Right. So interesting comment you made about, having your own opinions and also, again, not putting yourself in your own perception. Because a lot of times you'll hear these scenarios 100 times. You've been on lots of sales calls, a lot of meetings with clients, right? And so have we, and so have myself. But you can't bring that perception into that call. You have to look at everybody you deal with uniquely, right?
Every single person.
Every single time. Everybody's different. Every
If-
situation.
Every situation. And in our organization, in our business that we do, there might be 7 to 8 people now that you have to deal with before that transaction is, I should say that sale is made. And it's usually not ours isn't transactional. Your business tends to be, business to customer. So it's more transactional. What do you guys do when a deal stalls for whatever reason? Let's say it stalls. What is it usually? I'll let you answer that. What is it usually when it stalls?
Well, on a buyer's side, okay, we just had one that we're closing today, where the market was such that it was so competitive, and she just wasn't feeling comfortable with the multiple offers, et cetera, et cetera. She's a first-time home buyer. So she just kind of wanted to take a break. But what we did was we kept her with our lender. And it's it's part of your team. And so you have to make sure that your team is strong as well. So he got in there, showed her ways, because the market changed, right? So now rates are going up.
Right.
So now it's not competitive, but now you got to get in because rates are going up. So how are we going to structure that for you now? And we showed her that we could get money back towards closing costs, and boom, we found her house, got the deal that she wanted, and we're closing today. So that was a stall that, keeping her in touch with the lender really
that would really help.
Made it successful because he interjected and found a way to make it happen.
Great communication, right?
And then on the listing side, we'll have deals where, and it's usually around financing when things stall. And we have one where, the agent isn't very communicative, the lender's not communicative, and, we had to go to the lender's manager just to get answers, to get things rolling. Otherwise, it's when no one's communicating, it's just a standstill.
Right. And typically when something does stall, something breaks down, it's usually something with communication, right? Something
Always.
Always. I'm going to read something from, I went onto your website and I looked at some of your reviews, a lot of them. Okay. You have a lot of reviews on there, and I'm going to read this to you. And when you ask somebody, what are some great traits that, this person may have, this salesperson may have, and they start listing some traits. Here's what I found to be the, a common denominator with all the reviews. Friendly, this is talking about Catherine and Richard, friendly, knowledgeable about their business, professional, great communicators. And that's important in my book. Dedicated, passionate. And there was a plethora more of these, compliments. That says a lot about you guys, right?
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, we love our testimonials, and I remember, some of them bring me to tears.
Right.
So we had one client that she said she felt like she was our only client. That made me go into tears, because that's what we want.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's an emotional process on both sides, right? I mean, like I said, it's a people business. It just so happens there's a house.
Yeah.
And we find that we make a lot of friends in this industry. We do. And people even move away out of state, and we still keep in touch with them. So it's a lifelong business.
We have clients that send, one client in general, she sends me her sunset pictures because we knew how important it was, for her to have a sunset that she had in the house that she was selling. So she'll be like, here's my sunset tonight. And that just warms our heart. Like that they would think, because once the transaction's done, life goes on, right? You have kids, you have work, you have family. But she thought to take time to send me her sunset picture.
Yep.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And it's funny with these testimonials too, is sometimes when they write them, we're like, that has nothing to do with what we really did in the transaction for them, you know what I mean? But it's still nice to have.
when you think about a client that is buying a house for the first time and they don't have a lot of money to spend, they just want to get into a house. They want to, the American dream. They want to get into the house. They're putting all this faith in you too, to get them to that dream. And that's their dream, right? Their dream is to get into that house for whatever they can. So that's a pretty big responsibility on both of you, right?
Yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, it could put a lot of pressure, but I don't know. I never feel pressured.
I probably feel more pressure. I think it's a female male kind of thing,
Yeah.
But
the passion is there.
The passion is there.
Yeah, I feel like if it were my own house, if it were my own, transaction.
Yeah, I mean, it has to work, right? I don't ever want to push anybody into something that they're uncomfortable with, ever, right? Because it's something that sticks with somebody. You're living in that house. You have to want it. Right. And so if that desire, that want is there, then I'm going to make whatever it takes to make it work.
And I think what's good also about Richard and I is he is more laid back and doesn't really, things roll off his shoulder easily. He tries not to put a lot of emotion into things. So sometimes you can't control everything. And I'm the type of person that, wants to control everything. So it's good to have that balance. So he'll kind of calm me down and
again, playing off each other, right? You know what your strengths are, what Richard's strengths are. Richard, we just came out of some really tough times with the pandemic. And I know, it's affected everybody. I don't care what industry you were in.
Yeah.
How important do you think bringing, coming out of that pandemic, not post-pandemic, bringing any type of creativity into your space? Did you think about coming out of this with being more creative, being more?
Wow. I gotta tell you, COVID brought, if anything, creativity. We, like, for instance, we're on Zoom right now. We never used Zoom before.
Right.
Before COVID hit, I had some pretty good ideas of virtual showings. I've always been into technology. I knew 3D walkthroughs were going to be a thing in the future. And so when it hit, I kind of felt like I was a little bit ahead of the curve. We brought 3D into our listings. And I think one of the biggest things, because I've been into RC aviation and drone aviation prior to the pandemic, that when we started doing videos, because we had to try to sell something that nobody could go into.
Right.
You can imagine a home, really? So we had to make it as if you were there as much as possible. It actually brought out things that we wanted to do anyway. Like Catherine always wanted to accentuate the neighborhood. You know, what is it like? What is it like living in our area? You know, what are the things that you could do? You know, let's show that. So we did. I mean, aerial photography and photography around areas of interest, and then brought that into like a home presentation just on video. So I think that was a big thing for us. It really kind of brought us onto a new level when the pandemic even left. We had already set ourselves and to be known for that and so when we started going on listing appointments, I mean, we would hear like, wow, that seems to be your thing. And that was awesome. So
but we also we didn't let the pandemic stop us.
no.
Right.
We didn't feel like we were non-essential, and for instance, they did not want us to have open houses. They just wanted us to show people the house on the computer.
Yeah.
So we decided, okay, well, you had to have an appointment. That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It was this crazy thing. So I said, all right, well, let's set up shop outside.
Yep.
And advertise the open house. We still like put out our signs and everything. And when they got there, they're like, are you having an open house?
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, but you have to sign here, and here's a mask, and there you go.
Yeah.
Because they had to have an appointment. Would you like an appointment?
Yeah,
Great.
we'd like to make an appointment. We got one
Wow.
available, right?
You see, creativity, and what's really astonishing is that you weren't waiting. I mean, it sounds like, Richard, to your point, was that you started years before the pandemic. You were thinking 5 years down the road. And that's what a lot of salespeople don't do today. Even in our organization, we have to, when we got caught, everybody pretty much got caught flat-footed in our industry, because how many pandemics have you ever gone in your life before, right? Never. And so the market shifted very quickly, did this real pivot, and we had to respond very quickly. And a lot of times it wasn't very easy. Communication was very big. The market you're in is a very industry you're in is very competitive, right? What do you guys do to differentiate yourself from everybody else? Is this one of the things, like you just said, the drone footage? Because as I went onto your website and was doing some homework on this, I noticed, to your point, is that you did a lot of aerial views of the community, the parks around the area, what's available. When you're stuck in your home for 2-3 years, right, or a couple of years that was important to do. That was a smart move to show them what kind of community you're going to probably move into. So,
yeah, well,
sometimes we don't know who our competition is going to be.
Yeah.
It could be a family member. It could be somebody that's, thinks that they specialize in the neighborhood, or it can be somebody, that they've worked with in the past. We just never really know who our competition is going to be.
mm-hmm.
So, and typically they know about us before we meet with them. They're probably doing things like you, going on our website, or they saw an open house, or
maybe an event that we did. Or
yeah, so they know, they usually know we're experienced. They usually know we have the knowledge. So again, the questions that you ask them is how you want to tailor your presentation. But at the end of the day, people just want to know, can I trust them to represent my best interests?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much like our presentation has to show that, because how we differentiate from other people is, I think, we're more proactive. And I just know that because I talk to agents all the time, and I know that they're not proactive.
Yeah.
So, but people don't know that. They don't know what they don't know. So for me to say to somebody, oh, we're different than our competition because we're proactive, they wouldn't understand how that could work for them.
Right.
So again, our presentation just has to show them that they can trust us, basically.
Yeah,
Well,
a lot of the time. Go ahead, Pat.
no, you're obviously, I mean, you guys are doing something right. You're very, very successful in your space, and that's great. It's everything, it's the ingredients, right? What ingredients you bring is, listening, communication skills, but finding out that customer's desired outcome. I mean, that's what's real important, to everybody,
Yep,
because again, it goes back to that perception, right? So,
absolutely. What is their why?
yeah,
Why do they want to sell their biggest asset?
I like that. The why, exactly. The purpose, what is it you want to obtain here? That's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would do differently, Richard, today than you did 10 years ago? As far as your sales, some of the mistakes you might have made in the past, would you have changed some things? And I'll ask the same of you, Kat, too, but
Actually, no. I don't think there would be anything different. I know even with mistakes, I know the great thing about making mistakes is the journey of learning,
right.
right? If you didn't make mistakes, I don't think you'd learn really anything, and I don't think you'd be successful at that point. If you're not doing anything, you don't make mistakes. So no, I'm actually happy with our journey that where we are and what we've done. I mean, our clients are like I said, our most important asset to us, right? Our past clients are wonderful. I mean, and that is what really kept us alive during COVID.
Yeah.
Right.
That is what kept our business going, and even today, because we are in a different market. We are definitely in a market shift today, and it's our past clients that we appreciate. That when they call us because they trust us and they refer people to us.
Right.
That's a big part of our business.
And Pat, it's a new market every day.
Yeah.
So when you say 10, what would you do differently than 10 years ago?
Yeah.
So much has happened in 10 years that we're constantly changing.
Right.
All the time.
And the client is so much more informed, they have more intelligence, right? And more intelligence at their
Absolutely.
fingertips, right? And you can appreciate that, Richard, because you're into computers. How do you guys fill the pipeline today? Referrals, it has to be pretty high on your list, right?
Absolutely. That's a good question, right? And it's always a constant discovery for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're always trying to discover how to get in front of somebody and how to get in front of somebody you haven't met yet. And it's a constant question for us all the time. How do we do it? Is it postcards? Is it social media? Is it calls? You kind of have to be trying it all.
You're planting seeds all the time.
Yeah.
One of it's like people always ask, what's easy? And even our easiest sales had blood, sweat, and tears at some point. We can get a call out of nowhere, or we have gotten a call out of nowhere where a buyer was like, yeah, I'm a first-time buyer, $1.2 million. I saw that you sold homes that look like what I want to live in. So we thought we'd give you a call. And, I don't know what site they looked at. I have no idea how they found us, but, we just found them a home that they were looking for, and they were cash. So it was, easy to get it accepted. And
well, this was, and just to kind of go into that a little bit, this is how different Catherine is than most people. She doesn't know how to give up. And when we were in a market where things were going over and fast, right? Things,
right.
Last year, things were selling in less than, a week. Well, the house that they really had their eyes set on hadn't gone into contract. Catherine called that agent and found out that she was going to be putting another house on the market. Catherine persuaded her for us to see it prior to going on the market, and we got into contract before going on the MLS.
I forgot about that because there wasn't anything available.
There wasn't anything available. And so this was a first time buyer that had, $1 million cash.
Wow.
Right. And
Yeah.
you just, I mean, I'd love to run into that every day.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, and then that was literally, because we have sold in the area and our website. That was the two things that got us that deal.
Well, you both, just, being the team that you are and, having your own set of strengths, you're individual contributors for, now you're not your team, but you're still that individual. You have to have that individualism still in you. So great conversation. I appreciate your time today. I know you guys got to close some sales today, so I'm going to let you go. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they reach out to you?
We're old fashioned, I guess. The best way to really get a hold of us is to call us.
Right.
You call Catherine at 916-284-1520. That is her cell phone. You can also text.
All right.
And if you ever need that information, it's richandcatsoldthat.com. So it's pretty easy to remember.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time today, both of you.
Thanks.
All right,
That was
thanks,
fun.
Pat.
Great. Thanks.